I know you're not going to believe me. Honestly, if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't either. People make things up on the internet all the time. Ghost stories, fake screenshots, creepy tales meant to get clicks and views. But what I'm about to tell you, it's not one of those. I can prove it. Because last night, at exactly 12:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text message from someone who's been dead for 20 years. At first, I thought it was just another spam notification. I get those all the time. Congratulations, you've won a prize, or some shady link promising free Wi-Fi. Usually I just roll my eyes, delete, and move on. But this one was different. The sender wasn't some random number with too many digits. It was a number I recognized. A number I hadn't seen on my screen since I was 13 years old. I froze. My thumb hovered over the screen while my heart hammered in my chest. That number, it belonged to my best friend growing up. My cousin. My partner in crime for every dumb childhood adventure we ever had. The same cousin who died in 2003, buried in a small cemetery on the edge of town. I shouldn't remember his number. I shouldn't. 20 years is a long time. Phone numbers change, people move, carriers shut down. But I did. I remembered every single digit, burned into my memory like some cruel brand. And there it was, glowing in pale blue on my phone, like nothing had ever changed. The message itself? Just 4 words. Simple, direct, but they nearly made me drop the phone. It's so dark here. No emojis. No punctuation, just those words, time-stamped to the minute. I blinked. My chest tightened. For a second, I tried to convince myself that it had to be a prank. Some glitch, some scam. Maybe someone recycled the number. Maybe it wasn't him at all. I know you're not going to believe me. Honestly, if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't either. People make things up on the internet all the time. Ghost stories, fake screenshots, creepy tales meant to get clicks and views. But what I'm about to tell you, it's not one of those. I can prove it. Because last night, at exactly 12:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text message from someone who's been dead for 20 years. At first, I thought it was just another spam notification. I get those all the time. Congratulations, you've won a prize, or some shady link promising free Wi-Fi. Usually I just roll my eyes, delete, and move on. But this one was different. The sender wasn't some random number with too many digits. It was a number I recognized. A number I hadn't seen on my screen since I was 13 years old. I froze. My thumb hovered over the screen while my heart hammered in my chest. That number, it belonged to my best friend growing up. My cousin. My partner in crime for every dumb childhood adventure we ever had. The same cousin who died in 2003, buried in a small cemetery on the edge of town. I shouldn't remember his number. I shouldn't. 20 years is a long time. Phone numbers change, people move, carriers shut down. But I did. I remembered every single digit, burned into my memory like some cruel brand. And there it was, glowing in pale blue on my phone, like nothing had ever changed. The message itself? Just 4 words. Simple, direct, but they nearly made me drop the phone. It's so dark here. No emojis. No punctuation. Just those words, time-stamped to the minute. I blinked. My chest tightened. For a second, I tried to convince myself that it had to be a prank. Some glitch, some scam. Maybe someone recycled the number. Maybe it wasn't him at all. That's the kind of life I lived. Predictable, repetitive, boring. My phone was usually my lifeline. Emails, memes, texts from my buddy Jake asking if I wanted to grab a beer. Notifications stacked up like bricks every day. But nothing out of the ordinary ever came through. No strange numbers. No creepy late-night texts. Just the usual digital clutter of a modern life. If I'm being honest, I preferred it that way. I used to joke that my life was so uneventful. If I ever became the main character of a story, People would click away out of boredom before the first chapter ended. I leaned into the normalcy because it made me feel safe. The world was crazy enough on its own. I didn't need my own personal chaos. That night, before everything spiraled, I had been lying in bed scrolling through my phone like every other night. A little doom scrolling on Twitter, a few rounds of a mindless mobile game, and a half-hearted attempt to respond to Jake's text about trivia night. Nothing special. The air was quiet, except for the faint hum of my old ceiling fan. The kind of quiet where you don't even notice it until later, when the memory feels too calm, like the silence before a storm. I remember rolling my eyes at some dumb meme and muttering, "God, I need to get a life." That was the mood. Half asleep, slightly annoyed at myself, but wrapped in the comfortable monotony of an average Tuesday. Then the lights flickered. Just once. A small surge, probably nothing more than old wiring. I didn't even think twice. I laughed under my breath and said, "Guess I should pay the electric bill on time." Dark humor, a little jab at myself. Totally harmless. Looking back now, I can't shake the feeling that the universe was warning me, that it was giving me one last chance to recognize something was wrong, to get up, to walk away, to shut the damn phone off and never look at it again. But of course I didn't. Why would I? I tapped my phone screen, saw it was 12:12 a.m., and told myself I'd scroll for just one more minute before sleeping. Just one more meme. Just one more meaningless post. Just one more reason to avoid closing my eyes. That's when my phone buzzed. Not the polite, subtle buzz of a calendar reminder. Not the cheerful chirp of a text from Jake. This buzz felt heavier somehow, like the phone itself was shuddering in my hand. I blinked at the glowing screen, expecting another pointless notification. But no, what appeared next wasn't ordinary. It wasn't harmless. And it sure as hell wasn't something I could laugh off. Because at 12:13 a.m., right as my thumb hovered over the screen, that number appeared. The number I hadn't seen since 2003. And everything I thought I knew about my safe, boring little life shattered in an instant. The glow of the screen felt wrong. That's the only way I can describe it. Too bright, too sharp, like the numbers were carved into my vision rather than just displayed on glass. At first, I didn't even read the message. My eyes locked on the number itself. 10 digits that had no right to exist anymore. I whispered them out loud, one by one, the same way I used to when I memorized it as a kid, so I wouldn't need to ask my aunt for it every time I wanted to call. It was his number, my cousin's, and I swear to you, I hadn't thought about it in years. Not really. Not in any detailed, digit-by-digit way. Sure, I remembered him. I thought about the accident more than I'd like to admit. But his phone number? That should have been gone. Wiped clean. Forgotten. Yet there it was. Clear as day. And right below it, for words. "It's so dark here." My stomach dropped. The room felt suddenly colder, as though the ceiling fan had begun pumping ice instead of air. I told myself it had to be a scam. Maybe someone spoofing the number for some reason. But why this number? Why those words? My rational brain started pulling up excuses like tabs on a browser. Maybe the number got recycled after all these years. Maybe the new owner was some edgy teenager who thought sending creepy messages would be hilarious. Maybe I was half asleep and misreading the whole thing. But deep down, I knew better. Because those weren't just random words. Those were the last words he ever said to me. I remember it like it was yesterday. The twisted wreck of his car, the smell of gasoline in the air, the way his fingers clutched mine as if holding on would keep him tethered to the world. I remember leaning close, trying to hear him over the ringing in my ears. His lips trembled, and he whispered, "It's so dark here." And then he was gone. So tell me, what are the odds? What are the odds that 2 decades later, at the exact minute he died, those exact same words would appear on my phone screen? I stared at the message so long the screen dimmed and went black. My reflection stared back at me. Wide eyes, pale face, mouth slightly open. I looked like a stranger. Every instinct screamed at me to throw the phone across the room, to smash it into 1,000 pieces and bury it somewhere it could never find me again. But I didn't. Of course I didn't. Because fear is one thing, but curiosity? Curiosity is stronger. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Against every shred of common sense, I typed out 2 words. Who is this? I hit send. My chest tightened as the message bubble slid to the right. The dots appeared immediately. You know the dots, the little pulsing ellipsis that means someone is typing back. My throat went dry. The room seemed to shrink around me. I stared at those 3 dots for what felt like forever, waiting for the reply. And then it came. You left me. I gasped so loud it startled me. My mind flashed back to that night, to the chaos and flashing lights, to the guilt that never really let go. I hadn't left him. I stayed until the paramedics dragged me away, but in my nightmares, in the guilt I carried, I had. I'd always wondered if I should have done more. If I should have pulled him out. If I should have gone down with him. How could anyone else know that? The phone buzzed again before I could process. Another message, quick, as if whoever, or whatever, was on the other side didn't want to give me a moment to breathe. It hurts. My skin prickled with goosebumps. My rational thoughts dissolved. This wasn't some prank. This wasn't a recycled number. This was him, or something wearing his voice like a mask. I sat frozen, the phone trembling in my hands. My mind raced with 1,000 impossible questions. Was this hell? Was he reaching out from some limbo, trying to claw his way back through circuits and signals? Or was something else, something darker, using my grief as a doorway? I wanted to reply. I wanted to ask where he was, what he meant. But my fingers wouldn't move. My body refused to obey. I just stared at the screen, paralyzed, as the typing dots appeared once more. And then the 3rd message slid into view. Come find me. That's when I dropped the phone. It landed face up on the bed, glowing like a spotlight, those 3 words burning into the dark. I didn't pick it back up. Not right away. I sat there, clutching my knees, listening to the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the deafening thud of my heart. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, that grief was playing tricks on me, that the universe didn't just bend to spit ghosts through LTE networks. But then I remembered the way his hand slipped from mine 20 years ago, the weight of the earth as they lowered the coffin, the silence of the cemetery that day, and I realized, whether this was real or not, my life had just changed forever. You can't understand what that message meant, what those words really meant, without knowing the history, without knowing him, without knowing me. So let me take you back. His name was Daniel, my cousin, my best friend, my shadow. We were only 2 months apart in age, which meant every family gathering, every holiday, every awkward school function, we were side by side. Where I was cautious, Daniel was reckless. Where I hesitated, he leapt. He had that grin, the kind that made you believe he could get away with anything. Teachers loved him. Strangers trusted him. And me? I followed him every single time. We grew up in the kind of small town that looked perfect on postcards, but reeked of secrets once you scratched the surface. A handful of streets, a diner that doubled as a gossip mill, and endless fields where kids learned to drive long before they should. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew us. Summers were ours. Long bike rides down cracked roads, games of flashlight tag that stretched until dawn, whispered dares about the woods at the edge of town. That was Daniel's kingdom. Dark places, dangerous places, the ones parents warned us about. And I followed, because what else could I do? He had a way of making fear feel like an adventure. I can still remember one night. August, humid, cicadas screaming from every tree. Daniel had dared me to sneak into the old mill. Said people heard noises there, shadows that moved on their own. I was shaking so bad I could barely hold the flashlight. He laughed, called me a coward, and charged inside first. I trailed after him, heart in my throat, praying nothing would leap from the dark. The sirens came too late. I was dragged away as he went still, my hands reaching, refusing to let go until they forced me. And then he was gone, just like that. The town mourned. People laid flowers, whispered about how unfair it was. My family collapsed under the weight of grief. And me? I carried it like a chain. Because I was there. Because I lived. Because maybe if I had grabbed the wheel, maybe if I had shouted louder, maybe if I had forced him to stop, none of it would have happened. For years, I dreamed about that night. About his voice. About the darkness he described as if he'd already slipped into it. I told myself it was just trauma, just guilt replaying the tape over and over. But now, 20 years later, those same words had appeared again. On my phone, time-stamped to the exact minute of his death. Do you see why I couldn't brush it off? Why I couldn't laugh and say, "Oh, must be a glitch"? It wasn't just a random message. It was him. Or at least, something pretending to be him. And worse, it knew me. It knew the words that haunted me, the memory I never spoke aloud. That's why I didn't delete it. That's why I didn't throw the phone away and pretend it never happened. Because what if, against every law of reason, it really was him reaching out? I'd spent 20 years drowning in guilt, in what-ifs, in nights replaying the same scene until I wanted to tear my own brain out. And now, suddenly, impossibly, I had a chance to know the truth. The past hadn't just resurfaced. It had clawed its way back through circuits, through static, through the fragile little rectangle glowing in my hand. And I knew, deep down, that whatever came next, I wouldn't be able to turn away. The first 3 messages should have been enough. Any sane person would have blocked the number, powered down the phone, maybe even tossed it in the nearest river. But sanity has a way of slipping through your fingers when the past claws its way into the present. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard him, Daniel, whispering in that broken, fading voice. "It's so dark here." My chest felt like a vice, squeezing tighter every time I replayed the words. I told myself not to check the phone again. I told myself that if I ignored it, the messages would stop. But at 2:07 a.m., the vibration jolted me out of a half-dream. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. Another message. "You can still help me." I sat up in bed, the phone glowing like a flare against the dark. My heart jackhammered so hard I thought it might burst. Help him? Help him how? He'd been gone for 20 years. There was no helping him. I typed back before I could think. "Where are you?" The dots appeared instantly. That same sickening rush of dread and anticipation burned in my veins. I stared, barely breathing, as the reply slid into view. "With you." My skin prickled. I whipped my head around the room, eyes darting into every corner, searching for a shadow that didn't belong. The ceiling fan hummed its lazy spin. My dresser loomed in the half-dark. The closet door gaped open wider than I remembered leaving it. I told myself not to look too long. Don't give the dark time to move. The phone buzzed again. "Behind you." I froze. My body locked tight. Slowly, painfully, I turned. The only thing there was the window, curtains shifting faintly with the breeze from the fan. Nothing else. No figure. No cousin risen from the grave. But when I turned back, another message was waiting. "Don't ignore me." That was the moment I realized this wasn't a one-off. This wasn't a cruel prankster firing random texts in the night. This was personal. This was relentless. And it wasn't going to stop. I tried to test it. I didn't respond. I set the phone down, rolled onto my side, and forced myself to stay still, eyes squeezed shut. Minutes stretched, my body tense, waiting for the next vibration. It came. Buzz. Buzz, buzz. The screen lit up with a cascade of new messages, one after the other, faster than I could read them. Why did you leave me? You promised. I'm so cold. I'm still waiting. You'll see what it's like. I snatched the phone, my hands trembling. The words blurred together in a nightmare rhythm. Each one dug deeper into wounds I'd spent years trying to stitch shut. Finally, I snapped. I typed furiously, fingers stabbing the glass. Stop. You're not him. You're not real. The typing dots pulsed. My throat went dry. Then the reply appeared. If I'm not real, how do I know what you said that night? I froze. No one else knew. No one alive, anyway. Because the last words I'd whispered to Daniel as he slipped away, the ones I'd never told another soul, were, I'm sorry. Please don't go. And there it was. Word for word. I dropped the phone onto the bed like it burned. My whole body shook. Whatever this was, it wasn't just scraping old memories. It was inside them, pulling details I hadn't spoken in decades. I wanted to scream, to run, to wake up and discover it was just some twisted nightmare. But the phone buzzed again, dragging me back. You can join me. I clutched the blanket, heart pounding, sweat dripping down my temples. Join him? What the hell did that mean? My thumb hovered, trembling, over the keyboard. Every instinct told me to stop, to put the phone down, to cut the cord before it pulled me further. But I couldn't, because I had to know. How? I typed. The dots pulsed. My entire world narrowed to those 3 gray dots, dancing, hesitating, taunting me. Then came the reply. I'll show you. Silence swallowed the room. My fan clicked as it spun. My breath rasped in my ears. No more messages came. Not right away, but I knew it wasn't over. The way you know a storm is still building, even when the sky goes quiet. And sure enough, just before dawn, the phone buzzed one last time. Tonight, when the sun finally came up, it felt like an insult. The light slanted through my blinds, painting golden stripes across the walls, as if the night hadn't happened at all. Birds chirped outside, oblivious. The world carried on, ordinary and bright, while I sat hunched on the edge of my bed with my phone in my hands, waiting for it to buzz again. It didn't. Not in the morning, not through lunch, not during the long, restless afternoon where I tried to distract myself with work emails I couldn't focus on. The silence should have been a relief. Instead, it felt heavier, like a predator crouched in tall grass. By evening, I realized I couldn't stay in my apartment another second. The words, tonight, echoed in my skull, looping, gnawing. My mind kept drifting back to one place, the cemetery. I hadn't been there in years. Not since the funeral, really. My family visited often enough, left flowers, said prayers. I never joined. Couldn't. The guilt was too raw, the shame too thick. But now I had no choice. If he really was reaching out, if these messages were more than some elaborate cruelty, then I needed to face him. At the very least, I needed to stand over his grave and remind myself that he was gone, that dirt and stone separated us, that this couldn't be real. I told myself it was closure. Deep down, I knew it was an invitation. The cemetery sat on the edge of town, a sloping hill dotted with weathered stones and iron fences that squealed when you pushed them open. I parked just outside the gate, heart thudding, hands slick on the wheel. The evening sky was bruised with streaks of purple and red, the kind of sky that feels like it's holding its breath. The gate groaned when I pushed it. Gravel crunched under my shoes as I made my way up the hill. Every step felt like trespassing. I found his headstone near the old oak tree, just where I remembered. Gray granite, name etched deep, Daniel James Carter. Dates too short, separated by a dash that might as well have been a dagger. Someone had left flowers recently. Lilies, fresh, their petals pale in the fading light. My stomach twisted. I stood there, frozen. What was I supposed to do? Say hi? Apologize again? Beg forgiveness from a slab of rock? The phone buzzed in my pocket. I jumped, fumbling it out with clumsy fingers. The screen glowed. You came. My throat closed. I looked around wildly, scanning the rows of stones, the shadows stretching longer in the twilight. No one was there. The air was still, heavy, waiting. I typed back, hands trembling. What do you want from me? The dots appeared. My pulse roared in my ears. Listen. I frowned. Listen to what? I muttered aloud. Then I heard it. At first, I thought it was the wind. A low, rustling whisper threading through the branches of the oak. But no, the words were too sharp, too deliberate. They formed syllables, hushed and broken, as if carried from a throat that hadn't spoken in years. Help me. The whisper slithered around me, weaving through the grass, brushing against my ears. I spun, heart hammering, but the cemetery was empty. Just stones, flowers, shadows. Daniel. My voice cracked. Is that you? Silence. Then the phone buzzed again. Down. I blinked at the word. Confused, I looked down at the headstone. My chest tightened. He didn't mean the message was below. He meant he was. The ground. The grave. My legs wobbled. I dropped to my knees, palms pressing into the cool grass. My breaths came fast, shallow. I half expected the earth to split open, for a hand to shoot up and drag me down. Instead, the whisper came again, louder this time, vibrating through the soil. So dark, so cold, still here. Tears burned my eyes. My rational brain screamed impossible, but my body felt the weight of it, the truth of it. He was still there, trapped, suffering. I clawed at the dirt with my bare hands before I even realized what I was doing. Nails tore, mud caked under them, earth filling the spaces between my fingers. My breaths came ragged, frantic. I didn't care. I had to reach him. The phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it, kept digging, dirt flying, breath breaking. Buzz, buzz. Finally, I yanked the phone free. The message glowed. Deeper. I choked out a sob. My chest heaved. My hands shook too violently to keep digging. And yet, I wanted to. God help me. I wanted to keep clawing through the soil until I touched him, until I pulled him free, until I silenced the voice that haunted me. But then, another buzz. Not with hands. I froze. My breath hitched. What do you mean? I whispered. The reply came quick. With blood. A chill raced down my spine. The evening air pressed colder, thicker, like the night itself leaned close to hear my answer. I staggered to my feet, backing away from the grave. My mind reeled, horror slicing through the haze of grief. This wasn't Daniel. It couldn't be. Daniel wouldn't ask that. Daniel wouldn't demand blood. The phone buzzed again. Don't run. My heart thundered. My legs twitched, ready to bolt. But something heavier rooted me to the spot. Fear, guilt, the weight of years spent wishing I could trade places with him. I stood there trembling, staring down at his headstone, until the last of the light bled from the sky and the shadows swallowed the cemetery whole. When I finally forced myself to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't walking away alone, that something had followed, that I'd already given it permission just by answering. That night, back in my apartment, the phone lay on the nightstand like a loaded gun. I didn't dare touch it, didn't dare silence it either. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the next buzz. It came at 3 a.m. sharp. Soon, the night swallowed me whole. Every step I took away from my apartment toward the cemetery felt less like walking and more like descending. A staircase that never ended, spiraling deeper into something I couldn't escape. I told myself I was just going to look, that I could stop anytime. But that lie barely held together. By now, my body moved without consulting my mind. My fingers tightened around the slip of paper in my pocket. Daniel's name etched there like a key to a lock I wasn't supposed to touch. The city felt wrong. Too quiet, too empty. Streetlights flickered as I passed beneath them, each one dimming until I was swallowed in patches of shadow. The sound of my footsteps echoed louder than they should have, like the street itself was hollow. And my phone, God, the phone never stopped. Each buzz rattled like a pulse, steady and relentless. I swore I could feel it through my bones. I didn't even need to look at the screen anymore. I knew what it would say. Fragments of commands, fragments of promises. Closer. Don't turn back. You're almost here. Every word pushed me forward, erasing hesitation, filling me with dread so thick it almost felt like hunger. By the time I reached the cemetery gates, the air itself seemed heavier. My chest ached just from breathing. The iron bars groaned when I pushed them open, as if the graveyard itself objected to my presence. The night beyond was blacker than the city behind me, like I'd stepped into another world. The ritual's rules replayed in my mind. 3 steps. Go to where the body rests. Offer blood. Call by name. Simple. Too simple. And yet, every instinct screamed that simplicity was the trap. I walked the winding path through the rows of headstones, each one leaning like a witness to what I was about to do. The silence wasn't silence at all. I could hear the faint hiss of static riding on the wind, as if the entire graveyard were tuned to a broken frequency. Daniel's grave was waiting. I felt it before I saw it. The earth there seemed darker, the stone colder. My phone buzzed violently in my pocket, harder than before, as though reacting to the proximity. I pulled it out. The screen lit my face with a pale glow. One new message blinked against the darkness. Now, my throat tightened. My heartbeat roared in my ears. Still, I knelt before the headstone. My hands shook as I pulled the paper from my pocket. The letters of his name looked almost alive in the moonlight, as if written in veins instead of ink. I bit the inside of my cheek until blood welled up, then pressed the slip of paper to it, staining the letters red. My vision swam, nausea crawling up my throat. The rules said the last step was to speak the name. I opened my mouth, but before I could, my phone buzzed again. This time the message didn't wait. It forced itself onto the screen without a notification, filling the display in jagged white letters. Don't say it. I froze. The phone vibrated violently in my hand, then went dark. The graveyard air shifted, heavy as a hand pressing down on my shoulders. For the first time, doubt pierced through the fog of obsession. If I was being warned, was it Daniel? Or something else fighting for control? I didn't know. I still don't. But I do know this. The moment I hesitated, something shifted behind me. Gravel crunched. Not wind. Not animals. Footsteps. And when I turned, there was no one there. Yet I swear to you, I could feel hot breath on the back of my neck. I didn't run. I couldn't. My body locked. Every nerve twisted between terror and compulsion. The footsteps circled me though no one appeared, pressing closer, until the night itself seemed to lean in. The grave beneath me trembled. I swore I saw the soil rise and fall, like something buried was still breathing. My phone lit by itself, bathing the headstone in a sick glow. Letters crawled across the screen faster than my eyes could follow. Say it. Finish it. Or I will. I wanted to scream, but my voice died in my throat. My hand lifted, trembling, as if pulled by strings. The paper with Daniel's blood-stained name fluttered between my fingers. Daniel, I whispered. The ground shuddered violently, and the phone screeched with static loud enough to split my skull. But then, another message blinked over the static. Not Daniel. My blood turned to ice. I dropped the phone, and in the dirt its glow shifted, morphing into a face. Not my cousin's, something wearing him. Hollow eyes, a stretched mouth too wide, smiling as if it had waited 2 decades for this moment. The air cracked. I felt a hand claw up through the soil, grazing my ankle, cold and endless. I tore myself free and staggered back, heart hammering. The phone still glowed in the dirt, screen locked on one final message. You opened the door. Now I'm here. The static cut. The grave stilled. The night went silent. And I understood the truth. Daniel was never the one texting me. It was something older, something hungrier. And now it had my number. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My phone hasn't stopped buzzing since, though every time I check, the screen is blank. No messages. Just the vibration, steady as a second heartbeat. I've thought about smashing it, but deep down, I know it wouldn't matter. The number isn't in the phone, it's in me. So here's the part you need to hear. If you've stayed this long, you've already brushed against the signal. Stories like this aren't just stories. They're invitations. Every word carries a trace. And if you felt that buzzing in your pocket while you listened, don't ignore it. If your phone lights up tonight with a message from an unknown number, do not answer on the third reply, because that's when the door opens. And once it opens, it never closes.